So a while ago, I had an Xbox Series X that would bring with me everywhere I went. I had a case for it that at the very least weighed about 7 kilograms or 15.5 pounds. It was so heavy and big. Despite this, I would pretty much bring it everywhere with me to play games out in public or at college. The Xbox had massive latency issues that could not be solved by simply plugging it in wired. The Xbox forces you to have to update your controller about every month or so. The updates happen without any notice of any kind. So literally, I would be in the middle of a game, like Rocket League, for example. I will be wondering why I'm having so many problems, only to find out my controller needs an update to fix the problems I am pretty much experiencing. Not to mention that because of piracy and Xbox security measures, it was also a lot worse than that. There was so much latency. With that said, this is honestly the least of the problems with Microsoft. Xbox has done so much brand damage, it is too much fun, honestly, to poke at in this day and age. It isn't just limited to the consoles, it's actually a lot worse on the gaming side of things. There's no reason for you to have to worry about swearing in a game, so you won't get banned from a game you really enjoy. There's no reason for so many breaches of contract that you weren't notified on in any way. You don't have to do anything wrong or break any rules of any kind to really experience this. And unfortunately, there's not really much you can do about this. Despite this, I would still choose Xbox over PlayStation personally. PlayStation isn't really any better, but they do have different types of problems though, I will say. Both pieces of hardware seem like opposites, but yet too similar in terms of the games they can play. Another part of this is you'll never be able to convince me to want to learn how to use a PlayStation remote. I have enough problems as is switching between Xbox and Nintendo. It is an insane adjustment I have to make all the time. You're not going to convince me to make a third one. Someone had the absolute insane and brilliant idea I should ditch my Xbox and get a Steamdeck. The Steamdeck would not have the issues of being so heavy, let alone being difficult to carry, but would have similar functionality to the Switch since you can dock it like a normal computer. So I figured, why not? I'll give it a try. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about that. Before I mention anything else, I want to mention that my Steam Deck was bought used from a friend. I sold my Xbox and the money to buy a Steam Deck for $300. The Steam Deck used is worth between $200 and $450, depending on the condition and the various different types of Steam Decks you choose from. Brand new can cost between $400 and $600 nominally. Don't quote me too much on the prices, they're always changing, and it's difficult to figure out what's consistent and what's not. There are too many versions of the Steam Deck. There's the OLED and the normal LCD. The one I have is the LCD model. The LCD model is no longer in production as a result of generative AI, but you can still buy it used. The only difference though between LCD and OLED is honestly the OLED is better in handheld mode. The OLED is also better in terms of performance, but that's not really saying much since it's barely saying anything at all. I think it's maybe a 10% CPU boost or something like that. The Steam Deck LCD my Steam Deck LCD is the 512GB version with an upgraded SSD inside of it. So right now mine has a 1TB worth of storage inside of it, but it does have a 512GB SD card as well. This gives it about a total of 1.5 TB worth of storage. Games on the SSD run several times faster compared to the SD card storage, but most of the games you will be playing, it just really doesn't matter. It'll be mostly the same, you'll notice. The console is extremely customizable. You can install upgrades and decor like crazy with this piece of hardware. There really wasn't such a thing as a console you could customize to this level until this came out. You can install new plastic shells for this, new electronics in the inside, or really just upgrade the OS. The OS inside of it is literally just a fork of Linux. It's literally just Fedora. For these reasons, the Steam Deck you will own is probably never going to phase out of existence. There will always be some reason to keep your Steam Deck, and even when Valve decides to stop updating it, I'm sure people will get clever about figuring out ways to make it better. Pretty cool, honestly. The operating system is Linux. You don't have to just use this as a gaming piece of hardware for this reason. You can use it as your personal computer, which is basically what I use to help myself graduate college with. I would do software-related stuff during my internship. It can theoretically run Windows and Mac software under the condition. It has the processing power to run it, and you won't run into too many issues. Almost anything that you can run on Windows and Mac, you can pretty much run on this, but it will require setup. Running certain programs will require Windows emulation, which is actually how it runs most games, actually. Not only that, if you are in IT, this is something pretty cool you will want to check out. Imagine using SSH to interface with a server on a Steam Deck. It would be pretty easy to justify this with your boss, you would think. Not to mention, it also is used in industrial automation to interface with actual robots. Pretty sure Boston Dynamics and other humanoid or quadrupedal robot companies use this quite a bit, actually. The skill and other issues mostly only applies if you're running software on this for desktop mode. This doesn't really happen when you play games through the Steam store. Most games can be run on this through Steam with some compatibility issues, not really much. Some games will also ban you if you run the games on the Steam Deck, since Destiny 2 and a bunch of other major titles on Epic will ban you if you so much as try to run it on Steam Deck. The reason being is they don't think that people game on Linux and will ban you because they think you are hacking. You can also run Epic games on here with the Heroic Launcher, but the only game I've really never had many issues with was Rocket League. This is ironic since that is really the only game I cared about from the Epic Game Store. Everything else can just stay on Epic and away from myself because I just don't really care about it. The games that are verified to run on this can be found on Steam and are mentioned on Steam for running great or bad. Most games though, if they are not Steam Deck verified, do actually run good. I don't really have issues generally with compatibility. Games like Repo and Folklore Hunter were a pain to get running on a Steam Deck. They literally required controller emulation on Steam Deck because those games literally require a keyboard. For the amount of work, I just found it not worth it and just chose to not play those games on Steam Deck. One of the best parts about the Steam Deck is literally emulation. I probably have about 100 gigabytes worth of emulation stuff on my own Steam Deck. There's something called Retro Deck, which gives you the ability to interface with major emulation stations like RetroArch, except it doesn't look like it was made by a 6-year-old GUI designer. Retro Deck is similar to RetroPie for Raspberry Pi, but it runs on the Steam Deck instead. This gives you the ability to play almost every emulator, including the ones for the Nintendo Switch. There are others as well, but I've not tried them as much yet. Right now, Retro Deck does what I need to do and I love it. Apparently, you can ironically play Nintendo Switch titles on this, and you don't have to jailbreak it to do any of this, by the way. Most of the games I have tried run better on Steamdeck than they do on the Switch. Because of modding and tons of other things, this makes Nintendo gaming a lot funner, just don't get caught. You won't be able to play with Nintendo fanboys because you won't be able to connect to Nintendo servers, but homebrew servers do exist, though I am fairly confident when I say this, they're probably not that well populated. The Steam Deck has lower end hardware, so it can save on battery life and your wallet. This means that there's no CPU or GPU or even RAM installed on the Steam Deck. It uses an APU, which includes all of that, but in one unit. The total RAM of this console is 16 gigabytes, but it's shared on everything because of APUs being like that. Because of how well optimized it is, it can literally run most AAA titles at 60 FPS with the 720 pixel screen it has. It was literally able to benchmark Grand Theft Auto at literally 60 FPS. Just do so at your own risk, since battery life will drain like crazy if you do this. I typically run everything at like 30 FPS and low in-game resolution, since it runs a lot better generally. Ironically, some games do look better in low resolutions than higher. Monster Hunter has this thing where if you run it at lower resolutions, it looks a lot better on the Steam Deck. I don't know why this is the case, but it is something funny I noticed. Since it has come out, this console is having constant everyday improvements and optimizations as well. This results in more games being compatible with it, and the processing power literally comes across as improving upon each update. I have never really seen something like this get so much better as time goes on to this level, but it is really exponential and I just love it. Everything I have addressed so far has not talked about the cons of the console a whole lot. The cons do range, but they don't outweigh the pros, in my opinion. The console weighs about 600 grams or 1.5 pounds. This is so heavy that you can't really make yourself too comfortable while using it in handheld. Every time I use it, I feel like I'm destroying my back just trying to use it. The handheld offsets my back while I use it, and I've not really found a comfortable way to use it without a stand. I've tried using stands to hold this when I use another controller. This is a lot better, but hard to justify while doing it. If you are on a bus waiting for your stop, you just can't really do that, or even in long car rides with someone else driving. Most of the time, it's pretty pointless trying to use a stand. What is not pointless is the fact that it doesn't really come with a stand to begin with. It feels weird that you can't use a stand unless you buy a third party. Would be nice having a full stand to come with, but it doesn't really come with one. Not to mention, it just wouldn't be that expensive. This doesn't come with a dock either. Either you pay for a third-party USB-C dock, or you just spend $80 for a dock from the Steam store. I don't understand why you would want to spend $80 for a dock from the Steam store, especially when ones from the internet that are third-party don't cost that much. But what would I know? Maybe there are plenty of Steam fanboys that would want to spend that kind of money, but personally I just wouldn't. It just feels kind of pointless. It has triggers and bumpers that are designed to hold them with both your fingers at the same time, so your middle and index fingers are always on the bumpers and triggers. While you use this, I really like the idea of this, since pressing the buttons easier is good in theory, but with the added weight, it's just completely useless. I am fighting with trying to hold the console when I play with it in handheld, since it just slips too easily. Definitely better to dock it when possible for these reasons. It also has Steam Link, which gives you the ability to play it in handheld while live streaming a game from another computer. I've played with this quite a bit, but what I've found is it does save on battery life a lot. But like, I don't understand why you'd want to do that. Not that the latency is bad, but like, I don't understand what the point is, because like, it's just not that ergonomic personally. As previously mentioned, it is more finicky than traditional consoles. It is less useful out of the box than people would want to realize. That is also half the fun, but I can understand why some people would not like that. Granted, building a gaming PC is a lot more work and requires a lot more technical stuff, but I could see why that would intimidate a lot of people. This is not to say that this doesn't have a long way to go, for it does have a long way to go, but it is what it is. I never really do much docking with this at all. I mostly use it in handheld gaming, since at the gaming PC, if I want to play something with a monitor, I have docked it before with some games and I have noticed that it works, but you do gotta adjust the gaming resolution, since sometimes that can be problematic. This is a settings issue, but it can be changed. I can see though how this can intimidate a lot of people and them see it as an inconvenience. The Steamdeck is also a warm winter heater. I did an upgrade a while ago that expands upon the cooling of the Steamdeck. It's basically the same backplate it came with, but it has a lot more holes that can make it dissipate a lot better and more efficiently. It is really hard to justify overclocking it, since the Steamdeck is optimized to run the way it is, but you can technically dock it with a few mods. I just don't understand why. Feels pretty pointless. The console also has issues regarding battery life. Most games will start you off at playing on 60 FPS. You will want to strongly consider playing most of your games on 30 FPS. Your battery life will double and potentially triple if you do that. Otherwise, most AAA games will run with less than an hour of battery life, depending on the game. 30 FPS is also not different than playing it with the 60 FPS when you are playing it. You really won't be able to tell the difference because of handheld mode being a thing. If you are a competitive gamer, and this is something you'd want to consider for esports, don't. There's nothing on the market that can do that for you right now in handheld, and this isn't going to change that really, honestly. You are going to mostly use this to play indie games for all the reasons previously stated. Retro gaming is another major thing you'll be using this for as well. 3D AAA games are not going to be what primarily most people will use this for. I use it for this, can't speak on behalf of other people. You most certainly will not be using this for esports games, and if you make it big while using this, all the power to you. I just can't imagine people wanting to do this. It would just be treacherous. But I can't tell people what to do, and I know there are ways you can do it. If you are an indie gamer, retro gamer, or someone that wants to play Grand Theft Auto on a beach in July to avoid close contact with your own family, then this is definitely the console for you. It really feels like the closest I've ever seen to PC gaming, but in console format. Really surprised that Xbox completely did not try to compete with this any sooner than they had. Wasn't the whole vision of Xbox in the first place to be PC gaming but in console form? Like, what the heck is going on with Xbox these days? Like, what the heck? If you're going to get this, be warned, you will want to customize it, and it won't be out of necessity. It will be most likely an impulse decision that you will make after waking up 3 a.m. on a sleepless night. Trust me, you won't regret it, but your wallet will eventually. Probably the coolest and best upgrades you can do is replacing the NVMe with something bigger. You can find them online, no issues at all, but the price this day and age may make you regret it doing it now. If you do this upgrade, you may want to wait if you can afford it. If you can't, good luck. Just got to install SteamOS or learn to clone a OS properly with Clonezilla. My absolute biggest gripe is that it is so heavy and my back hurts every single time I use it. But I can't say that this is much of a gripe since I do use this all the time when I'm waiting or meeting up with friends. I just wish someone could buy me the Ford exoskeleton suit used for helping build cars so I can enjoy this more publicly. I hope you enjoy this video. This was a lot of fun making. Just been struggling trying to come up with ideas. If you have any, I'm all ears. I'd love to hear what you think. See you in the next video.